and welcome to Grouchy Geeks, episode 40. My name's Scott, and joining me on the hottest day of the year is Steve.
I'm melting. I'm absolutely melting. That buzzing noise in the background is the fan going around that's trying to keep me cool desperately.
Yeah, it's ridiculously hot. It's historically hot. It's that hot here in the UK.
Not that there's any global warming or any proof.
No.
However, on the hottest day of the year, maybe there's something to it. Just saying.
Anyway, so this isn't a normal episode because this is a post-Comic-Con episode where there's been lots of trailers, lots of news, lots of interesting things to talk about. And I'm sure in my case, I've only seen half of the stuff that's been put out there because there's so much interesting things happening. But I guess the plan is just to find some highlights and see what interesting things there is to talk about.
Yes, we'll wade through some of the stuff because there's too many stories to go into, but we'll pick out some of our favourites and talk about them at length, I guess. So,
what about you? You go first.
Okay, shall we start with the really big stuff, which is of course, Marvel have released their new timeline for Phase 4.
So what do you think to it?
It's interesting that they've combined now on the plan, which they'd never done before, film and TV together. And that the fact that they've spaced out the TV shows in between the various films to try and make it more of a joined-up thing. And even though the stories don't relate necessarily, and then not all the stories are connected to each other, the way they space them out on the timeline makes it look like it's all one big thing, even though it's separate stories. Very interesting.
So I think I am... So after watching the announcements, I've definitely realised that I am now suffering from Marvel fatigue a little bit.
Wow, okay.
But... over the course of 10 years, they did all of these amazing movies and built to this incredible crescendo.
Yep.
And now they're just kind of continuing at the same pace, unrelenting. And I know they can't do this because they're in the business of making money. But it kind of just feels to me like what I would love to happen is for them to just be like, that sort of phase. I know there's different phases already in that group, but that's like the big part one of this cinematic universe all tied up in a nice bow. We're going to take like 2 years out and not do anything, and then we'll start to build things back up again. I just, after the enormous crescendo of Infinity War and Endgame, it kind of, to just keep going, I'll just find it exhausting.
There's definitely a lot there. Yeah. I'm excited
how are you super excited about it? Because I just kind of feel like I'm sure there'll be good movies and I'm sure I'll see them, but I've lost the sense of excitement for them.
I think because when they were first coming out, and it was quite an unknown, and there was massive risks, as we know, with Robert Downey and so on, and they didn't know it would come to this. Yeah, they planned for the best, expect the worst, is the kind of thing, and it grew and grew to the scale where it became something unprecedented in all of cinema history. So, as you said, it ended with Endgame, and they can't go straight back to doing something big. They obviously have to build up to it. But my gut tells me that there's still too much out there. I'm going to be watching most of the TV shows, probably all of them, but I'm not sure I'll go and see all of the new films. So there's some of the material I'm not as familiar with, and whilst that may not be a problem for some people because they didn't know of Guardians of the Galaxy and yet they loved the film, some of these I'll think, because they're coming out so regularly now and there are so many of them, I might just wait until it comes on TV or a streaming service. That's kind of where I am with some of them. But I'm really excited for things like Falcon and the Winter Soldier because that's a favourite character of mine, both of them, particularly Winter Soldier. Shang-Chi, I want to watch that because I love Kung Fu and the character. Hawkeye could be good. And probably Thor is the other one that looks quite interesting too. But that's not until 2021. So there's a lot on the schedule, but for me, I guess it's almost going to be a bit thinner on the ground because I'm going to take a little bit of a step back. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Yeah, I think maybe fatigue is the right word. Maybe it's just they're not going to rev down. They can't. They want to keep the momentum up. But for me, one film a year, I think is too many.
Yeah, I agree. And plus the TV shows as well.
Yeah.
And it's just overwhelming. Like, you know, typically in comics, you get, when people read like one of the main two, you typically have people that either read Marvel or DC, just because there's so much going on in those lines and so many, you know, cross-fertilization of stories that it's difficult to keep up with both. Yeah. And it's almost like we're getting to that with TV shows now. It's like, I really love movies and TV, but I only have time to watch stuff that Marvel puts out. I haven't got time for any other shows at all. So, yeah, like I say, I'm sure I'll get to them, but I've just...
It's crazy. So they've got 3 things on the schedule for 2020. Mm-hmm. They've got 7 for 2021. So you've got Shang-Chi and Doctor Strange films. They're in February and May. And then at the end of the year, November, you got the new Thor film, mm-hmm. but you've also got 4 TV series in 2021. So, you know, there's a lot there. There's a lot going on. Plus, that doesn't count the things that aren't on the schedule yet that'll be coming from 2022. So mm-hmm. you've got Captain Marvel 2, Black Panther 2, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and they also said they're going to do a Fantastic Four film. Plus, there's Blade as well, remember, because they announced the casting of the Academy Award-winning actor in that role. So there's tons of stuff coming up. I'm kind of tired already.
And I'll be honest, the thing that didn't help as well, watching some of the clips of Comic-Con on YouTube, in that Marvel panel where they were announcing all of this stuff, the crowd just going absolutely mental put me off.
Really? Why?
They were just going absolutely crazy. You'd think that, I don't know, it's just very un-English.
Okay, yes, of course. A polite applause for short.
Exactly. Yeah, like a golf clap. Just a polite. Yes, we approve of this.
Yes, polite clap, maybe a short wave.
Yeah,
that's enough. That is the required amount to show enthusiasm. Oh, brilliant. So, apart from Marvel, what other news did you see from San Diego?
So, I watched a lot of trailers today in preparation for this. Some of the stuff I'd never had any idea was coming out.
Okay.
Which is some of the most interesting stuff. So, one of the things which, as soon as I saw the beginning of the trailer, I instantly discounted until about halfway through, is Snowpiercer.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've seen the movie or read any of the source material that it's based on.
So I know about the comic, and I have watched the film with Chris Evans.
Yes, and the film is okay. It's kind of in an era where we don't really get B movies anymore. It's kind of an entertaining B movie. It's sort of a fun idea. And I was watching the trailer for this new TV show thinking, this is a bit straight. It looks very much like the film, even to the extent where in the trailer they're showing specific scenes that occurred verbatim in the film.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm not sure what I think about this, but I don't think I'm very keen. And then halfway through comes up the title card that says, from the creator of Orphan Black.
Oh, is that what got you going?
So now I'm interested.
Okay. I'm still on the fence. I'm still kind of, it looks pretty much the same as the film. I'm not getting anything from it. So I'm like, I've seen that. I know how it ends. It's that thing of, it's going somewhere, but we know where they're going. We know it's the Westworld thing. First season was brilliant. The second season was a train wreck. because there's kind of only one end. Now the third season is basically a science fiction show that has very little bearing on the first or second season. And Snowpiercer, unless they stretch it out, it can't run for more than 2 or 3 seasons at the most. And they're not going to do the JMS thing of, here's the middle, here's the beginning, here's the end, boom, it's done. They'll go, yeah, milk it again, keep going, turn handle, do another one. And you just be like, season 17, still haven't made it to the front of the train. Why not? Oh, the train's longer than we said in the previous 16 seasons. You've added some more carriages. What?
Yeah. Yeah, it pulled into a station, and now it's twice as long as it was before.
Yeah, it took so long to put one carriage next, but time to build new carriages. Right. Okay.
So, yeah, the only thing that piqued my interest in that entire trailer is it's from the creator of Orphan Black, in the same way that whatever Ronald D. Moore did after Battlestar Galactica, which we never really got to see, made us all sort of sit up and take notice. So with that person in charge, I think potentially he's going to do something really interesting, even though it's very unclear what that interesting thing could be in that story.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, if it comes on and it's not on a service that I don't already, if it's not a service that I already have, I'll give it a look. Yeah. If I have to get something else, I'm not going to go out of my way to kind of find it.
Oh, no, definitely not.
Yeah. Did you watch the trailer for the Watchmen TV series?
I did, and I still have no idea what to make of it.
No, me neither. It's set after the film. They reference things. There's hints and clues that point to things from the film, cameos and so on, nods to some of the characters, the whole Rorschach masks and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know. I just think it's one of these things where you just can't go back to it. We've talked about Watchmen before, and a lot, but the idea was that it was a love letter to superhero comics and characters, and a person who was steeped in the genre to other people who love the genre and what it was all about, and taking it back to its basics. And there's stuff to do with, politics and all this other kind of stuff. And that's what it was, and it was perfect. And now they're doing this. It's just, I don't see why. I don't see why they just do something completely different.
It seems very, very strange to me. And I don't know, it confuses me who they're trying to appeal with it as well. Because if you've heard of Watchmen and you're a fan of Watchmen, then the fact that they're doing this at all, I think, will make most people very uneasy and very cynical about how they can pull it off. And if you've never heard about Watchmen, I don't see why it's appealing in that case either. It's a really weird decision to me. But to their credit, the trailer gives nothing away. Like it sort of like has a couple of, it mentioned Dr. Manhattan and the people in the Rorschach masks, and there's a few references back to the original comic, but there's nothing in there, to me at least, that gives you any sort of a hint as to what it could possibly be about.
No. Yeah, it's a very weird choice for something to develop, so I don't think I'm going to bother with that. There's some shows that you think, I'm not too sure, and then they get cancelled after a season or two, and you go, yeah, I'm glad I didn't bother. And this is one that I'm not going to look at. Like Gotham, I watched the first couple of episodes, I'm like, no, it's not for me, I'm done. And now it's finished, I'm not going to go back and watch the rest because I still have no interest. Same with this, I think. What other news or bits did you watch then?
Okay, so something that I saw today that I'd never heard of until I started watching the trailer, but actually at least looks interesting, and that they're trying to do something really different. And I don't know whether you'll have heard of it before, because I certainly hadn't, but it's Carnival Row.
Is this the Orlando Bloom thing?
Yeah, Orlando Bloom and the woman from the City of a Thousand Planets, where it's sort of this Victorian town that has humans in it, as well as mythological creatures like fauns and trolls and centaurs and fairies and things like that.
Yeah.
And it looks really different, and it has a really different feel to it. And I don't know, I'm guessing it was based on something, a book or comic or something like that. But it's interesting to me because I've not seen anything like it before, I don't think.
No. It reminds me a little bit of the Will Smith film where he was a cop, right? Yeah. You know, and there was dragons and centaurs and orcs running around, but that was modern day. So it's all to do, I think, with messages of segregation and xenophobia and, you know, putting people in cages who are different from you. How relevant can you get? And all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it's got a bit of a I don't think it's got steampunk, but it's definitely, as you say, it's sort of bowler hats and grimy streets and all that kind of stuff.
It looks really interesting to me. It's very difficult to know what direction it's going to go in, but it looks really cool and really interesting.
Yeah. I might give it a look when it comes out, depending on when it arrives. So there's a new trailer released for this at Comic-Con, but it starts airing in this week, actually. And are you familiar with the comic book series that's now going to be a TV series starring Carl Urban called The Boys?
I've never read it. It's obviously a very famous comic book series, so I was aware of it. And even as somebody that's never read it, I can picture some of the covers because there were some very famous covers there.
Yes.
Knew absolutely nothing about it, but I thought the trailer was brilliant.
So it's created by Garth Ennis, and the artist is Derek Robertson. And you know how 20 years ago, Brian Hitch, when they were doing the new Avengers with Mark Miller, he created the new Nick Fury, and he based the look of him very loosely on Samuel L. Jackson. And then years later, oh look, there's Marvel films, and who can we get for Nick Fury? Samuel L. Jackson. They did something similar with this. One of the characters was called Huey, looks a bit like Simon Pegg. And then, of course, now they're making it into TV series. They approached him, and because of his other commitments to stuff, he isn't playing Huey, he's playing Huey's dad in it. But that character is still one of the main ones, Huey, in it. So that's quite cool that they're kind of full circle on that too. I read the first 3 or 4 trades, and then it went a bit off the rails for me, and I stopped. But I think this could also be one of the times where the TV series could be better, only because they boil it down to some of the key elements. They haven't got time or the space or perhaps the gratuity level that Garth Ennis would take things to that you can do with a TV series. And it's basically a world where superheroes exist. There's the equivalent of the Justice League, the best in the world, 7 of them that go out and do great things and save people. But here's the twist. Most of the superheroes in the world are complete arseholes. And as we see in the trailer, Huey is out with his girlfriend on a date, and a superhero is running somewhere and runs through her and kills her instantly, and he's left holding her forearms.
Yeah. I thought that was brilliant. And the guy's, I can't remember what the superhero
sorry, I
says,
can't stop. And he goes,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then later on he's seen say, oh, she stepped right in front of me. I couldn't help it. He's like, no, don't do it. So Huey joins this group called The Boys, who's led by a character called Butcher, who's played by Carl Urban. And he says, what do you do? Well, we spank them. He's like, how? Well, you'll have to find out. So it's about them bringing justice for the people who are wronged and taking down crooked and dodgy superheroes. But the problem is, the 7 biggest are the best, and they're all dodgy as anything as well. So how do you take down the most powerful? Yeah,
it looks great. I'm really intrigued by it, and obviously because of not having read it, then it's nothing. There's nothing there to disappoint me, right? If I don't like it, then I'll just stop watching it. But it's not like my dreams of finally seeing The Boys brought to the screen have been dashed. So it looked great to me, really great.
You picked up for season 2 already.
Wow. Okay, that's a really good sign.
Yeah. So it's like, yep, that worked. Go. They start work on the next one as we speak.
Cool. So something else I'm really intrigued by, and we definitely know that we will get to see it because it's a BBC production. Is so one of my favourite book series of all time is Philip Pullman's Dark Materials.
Yes.
Which had, I'll be honest, I didn't have that much of a problem with the film. The film completely tanked, and they never did the other books.
No.
But the BBC are now taking on Dark Materials as a TV show, and I think it looks absolutely great. They've clearly put a load of money into the production.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it looks brilliant. The trailers look good. Special effects look brilliant. I'm really excited about it. I think it starts showing later this year or early next year.
I think so. Yeah. Have you read the books at all?
Yes.
Okay, because I love the books.
They're really good.
They've stuck with me for a long time, and actually doing a treatment that does it well, which could be really, really exciting.
Have you read his new one, Book of Dust?
I haven't, no, but I've heard it's just as good as the other three.
Okay, I've not read it either, so I was just curious if you had.
No, it got absolutely. I looked at some of the reviews when it came out, and it just got absolutely stellar reviews. It's meant to be really good.
Okay. Another trailer I saw for something that comes out in December is The Expanse Season 4.
Oh, Season 4. Oh boy.
Have you not started on this?
I've tried and aborted so many times now.
Oh dear.
I know that everybody's told me that it's something you have to get past. You have to get to a certain point, and after that, it really comes into its own. But I've just continued to struggle with it for ages. I know I need to give it another. On paper, it ticks every single box, and I should absolutely love it. But I don't know what's making me struggle with it so much.
Well, I understand because everybody said the same thing to me. It's brilliant. You should watch it. I started watching season 1 and I was struggling. Season 1 is admittedly slow because there's a lot of things to build up and there's a lot of planning. And I went in thinking it was going to be like Babylon 5 because of the way it was set up, and the people were telling me it was a sci-fi show. There are no aliens in it. It is a completely human-based show. There are no travelling to other star systems in spaceships to have battles with other creatures and that kind of thing. It's all about Earth, Mars, and the Belters, people who live and raised on the belt, the asteroid belt. But then it begins to trickle out, and there are other things in it. I mean, not on here, but off air, I'll tell you a couple of things about it that, in a way, spoil it, but it might then intrigue you to get to that point and keep watching it, and then you may be able to get over the hump. But it's definitely a show that I recommend persevering with. The acting is brilliant, special effects are good, and it's based upon the novels, of course, by James S.A. Corey, and they're on about book 7 or 8. So they haven't quite caught up, but I think one novel roughly equates to one TV series or thereabouts. So there's still plenty of material for them to pull on before they have to do a Game of Thrones and go off on their own.
It's amazing. It's amazing how behind I am on so many things now. When back in the day, we've talked about this before, you would just watch absolutely every single episode of everything because you were starved of things.
Yeah.
And I certainly didn't watch all the trailers for these, but I compiled this list and I actually wrote it down because I became a little bit obsessed with how many of these things there were. It was like there were trailers for Flash Season 6, Riverdale Season 4, Doom Patrol Season 2, Titans Season 2, Supergirl Season 5?
Yeah. Flash Season
I was fan
7
of that.
or 6.
I didn't know it had been going on for that long. Arrow Season 8, Black Lightning Season 3, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 6. It's like, guys, slow down. Just give us normal people with jobs a chance.
You're not normal. None of us are normal here.
That's true.
We're not normal. Yeah, there's so much stuff. I've cut things because there's too much stuff, and even though I felt guilty a little bit, I don't miss them only because I've now got so many other things to watch. I'm not starved of material. There's just too many. There's just too much stuff going on. So, anyway, what's the next thing that you want to talk about before we get to the big one?
Okay, so I'm going to go with picking another one that I'd never heard of until today, but I thought looked really, really interesting. And again, it'd be interesting whether you've heard of this or not. It's The Rook.
No, so I've seen some people saying it's different. The TV series is going to be different from the book, but I haven't read either. I'm not aware of either.
So never heard of this till today. Didn't know it was based on a book. So the trailer itself is really interesting, how it's all put together. But basically, we see this person. It starts very James Bondy. So we see this person, this woman, get recruited into British intelligence. We see, pictures of some of those iconic buildings, and it's very James, the sort of posh Oxbridge accent speaking to her and talking to her about this world that she's getting inducted to and stuff like that. But then it turns out that the reason that they're interested in her in particular is because British intelligence has the ability to identify people with superpowers.
Oh.
So they're very quietly recruiting essentially superheroes into British intelligence to work as spies.
Oh wow!
But it was all done very. If you think of a Marvel movie, which is like a 2.5 hour disco ball rave with like loud music and just complete sensory overload, this was like the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Like, it looks very cerebral, not high on special effects, but actually, one of the things that we talked about, one of the things that we really loved in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the Winter Soldier, because it's a superhero story as a sort of Cold War spy film as well.
Yeah.
And this kind of feels like it's that. We're recruiting people with superpowers, but it's all about behind the scenes espionage, doing stuff very, very quietly. Like I say, so British intelligence services and all stuff like that. It looks really, really cool. And like I say, very, very understated, but in a good way.
Okay. Well, that sounds intriguing. Is this on Stars, I want to say, maybe?
That sounds about right. I didn't make a note, but okay. I think you're right, yeah.
So I think it starts airing this month at the moment. Okay. And don't know when we'll get it in the UK, but I would hope, given it's set in the UK, we'll actually get it over here. But who knows? Yeah, so people are saying it's different to the book, but I've not read either. So there again, I like you, I'm not going to be there going, oh, it's so different, and like we have talked about with Watchmen, it's not the same kind of thing. But yeah, it looks interesting and intriguing. A more slower, quieter version of a superhero thing on TV could be refreshing for a change, rather than something that's so overt and loud. Okay, do we want to talk about the big one?
The big one, the one that we've been holding back because we know we're going to talk the most about it, is obviously Top Gun Maverick.
I'm disappointed that Iceman doesn't appear in the trailer at the end. I mean, we know that he's been commissioned to be in the film. We know that he has to be, they put him on Val Kilmer on like a weight loss program and a health kick because he was carrying a little bit of extra weight, so they could actually convincingly say he can actually squeeze into the planes.
Yeah, he doesn't just sit there and they have to build the plane around him.
But yeah, they didn't show him. So anyway, it looks all right. I'll probably see it on TV. I'm not going to go out my way to watch it. You?
No, don't care about it at all. That was why I picked the thing on the list that I cared about least.
I suspected that's what you'd done. Okay. The real big one that we actually wanted to talk about, and we're going to probably dissect infinitum and spoil, if you haven't seen the trailer, go out and watch it now, is Star Trek Picard.
What did you think?
I'm very excited. I'm quietly cautious, but I'm still very, very excited. What about you? Spoilers for everyone who hasn't seen the trailer. We're telling you now, we're going to spoil the trailer and then our thoughts on what it might be.
I'll be honest, it's made me feel slightly wary, excited, but wary.
Why so? Why so?
Because so all of the information that was coming out originally. So when Patrick Stewart did the initial reveal, he was talking about this. Now, this is just going to be a small story. It's going to be focused on Picard as this man that's been through a lot and is very different from the Picard that you remember, and is emotionally damaged, and it all felt, and I've still got faith in Patrick Stewart that it could be this, but it felt that it was going to be this small thing that wasn't kind of all over the top action. And we heard from Alex Kurtzman, who I have no faith in whatsoever, unlike Patrick Stewart. He's saying, to quote him directly, the Picard series is a psychological character study, and that was what I was expecting. You know, just seeing Picard on screen again, it focused on him, and it being a small thing. And then we go to the trailer, and we've got this young girl kung fu kicking people off of the side of buildings, and to be frank, the look and style of it just felt to me that they'd dropped Patrick Stewart into an episode of Star Trek Discovery, and there was, you know, huge fleets of spaceships flying around and shooting at each other, and it felt very different from the show that I've been sold and I was looking forward to.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, it looks great, and I'm still excited about it, and I've still got faith in Patrick Stewart, and I can explain it away in my head by thinking, well, people like me are going to watch it independent of the trailer and be on the edge of their seat, desperate for it. The trailer needs to sell it to people that ordinarily wouldn't have chose to watch it.
Yeah.
So the trailer itself doesn't need to be pitched to me because I'm already there. So maybe they're just editing it to show the things that make it look cool and full of action and like Star Trek Discovery. But yeah, the trailer was a concern. I'm sure we'll go into like some of the really cool stuff, and there was loads of cool stuff in there that I really liked. But I was surprised by the tone of it, if I'm being perfectly honest.
So I've been watching some of the interviews from San Diego with Patrick Stewart and the rest of the cast, and there's a few things in there that are surprising. So the first is, have you noticed the show has now slipped to 2020?
No, I hadn't actually.
So it's no longer coming out this year. And when on one panel he said, we've still got 3 episodes left to shoot. So they're not even done yet.
I'm guessing the slip is because they very late in the day they had to change a showrunner.
Yeah.
Which to me was a good change. I thought it was a positive change, but you can't just... there must have been something wrong for them to change showrunner, and you can't just switch gears like that and not incur some kind of a time penalty.
Yes, that's the first thing. The other thing is there's some people in the cast that we've seen, that we know, the actors from various shows. Yep. There's also one person that isn't shown, he's not in the trailer, but he's in some of the panels, and it's got me very, very intrigued. Do you want to know who it is?
I think I know who it is, but go ahead. Are you talking about Hugh?
Yes, the actor Jonathan Del Arco, who's playing Hugh Borg. And someone had said, is there anything you can say about your character? And he said, well, I am playing Hugh.
Right.
And he said, well, what else can you say? And he said, well, not a lot, except that at the end of where the character was left in The Next Generation, Picard basically left him on a colony by himself with a bunch of other Borg, and they said, we don't have a leader. And he says, oh, I think you do. So the actor has also talked about having his face masked properly and covered up to do the makeup and so on, so that he's going to have some Borg makeup on his head, but to what extent he obviously couldn't say. But if it's 20 years on, there's going to be some development in terms of the character becoming independent or a leader. Mm-hmm. 7 of 9 looks very different in that 20 years on, she's a lot more human than ever before. It's like she's a completely different person, but then you think about it and go, yeah, he's the same guy. She's had 20 years to be a human, learning more about being a grown-up. So there's going to be some evolution there. So obviously the main story all ties into the Borg, 7 of 9, and Picard. And there was something in the trailer, I don't know if you spotted this. At one point, there's a massive Borg cube.
Yep.
And it looks like it's been surrounded by various starships and things, but it's in like a force field. It's not active because it's blue and it's not green. And then it goes and shows you people being watched with guns. And there's a little sign. Did you see what the sign said? Yeah, that says, this vessel has gone so many days without an assimilation taking place.
Yeah, I thought that was quite a nice, funny little touch.
So the theory is, Romulus is gone. It exploded and that ties into Spock leaving and going to the universe and arriving with the other, crew of Chris Pine, all that kind of stuff. So Romulus is gone. Mm-hmm. There's a load of refugees, but in order to get them off the planet, someone, I think I know who, used technology from the Borg to mass teleport people onto the cube, and they're now refugees.
Yeah, that sounds about right, and in keeping with what we know. It would also tie into why 7 of 9 is there. Interesting cameo at the end with Lieutenant Commander Data.
Well, yes, it is him, maybe. But when someone asked Brent Spiner about this, and they said, "Oh, and there's Data in the tray in pieces," he actually said, "Oh, that's B4."
Oh, okay.
And I thought, hang on, wait, what? Because Data blew up, but his memories engrams went into B4, and right at the end, it started to suggest that he would remember and become Data again. So who's in the tray? If that's B4, why is Data now walking up? Anyway.
If it looks like Data and it talks like Data.
That's the thing, yeah. It's that case of it looks like him and it sounds like him and he's talking to the captain as if he knows him. Mm-hmm. So we think he's involved, but it's not clear if he's in Starfleet and did they just let him pick it back up from where he was before, or did he have to earn his stripes again after 20 years? And is he now a captain or an admiral or what? And they're all very scared of this young woman for some reason. I've only got theories about who she is and why. Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, so there's lots of lines. There's lots of lines in there where it's like the girl is the key to all this. She doesn't know how powerful she is, and stuff like that. There's a few theories floating around. I think it's clear, or not. It's not clear. My working theory is that she is some kind of Borg human hybrid that is the key to unlocking whatever it is they need to worry about with the Borg or something like that. She can. She's kind of like. Locutus in that she can sense, she's got some connection to the Borg which makes her useful. So she could be the illegitimate child of the Borg Queen and Picard from Star Trek First Contact, or she could be 7 of 9's and Chakotay's daughter, because they had a relationship in Star Trek Season 7. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be something like that. She's going to be some kind. She's going to have some unique heritage that gives her an ability to do something that makes her special in some way. There's all sorts of crazy theories out there that she's Data's daughter, Lal, who he created and lasted for an episode. I don't think it's going to be anything like that.
She's bleeding in one scene, so she's not. She's human enough that she can bleed.
But I guarantee it's going to be some throwback to some combination of relationships made her come to be from the next generation, and now she's got some powers or other or something like that.
I think she's Picard's progeny in some capacity. I think what makes her dangerous is that physiologically she's completely human. There's no Borg implants. There's no kind of, anything inside or out, like the people have stuff implanted and then they gradually pull the bits out. I don't think she's like that anyway. But I think she still has the capacity to access the knowledge that exists in the Borg collective, which makes her the most dangerous thing, because it's that thing of like the Matrix. It's like, do you know how to fly this helicopter? No, hang on.
Yeah.
And I do now. You're like, whoa, wait a minute. So imagine if one person could do that. They could access potentially any information in a collective that exists if you required that knowledge at that time. I think that's why she's potentially so dangerous.
Mm-hmm. It's bound to be something like that. So she's going to be... So how about this for theory? So we have... so we know from Star Trek Voyager that all Borg drones have nanoprobes going around in their body. There was loads of subplots where that happened with, that was relevant to something happening with Seven of Nine. So if a Borg, if you get a Borg human hybrid, then the progeny would be 100% human, because it's a human breeding with another human.
Yep.
But they might transfer the nanoprobes. So she could be 100% human, but have Borg nanoprobes all through her body. So she's still she has bits of Borg inside her, even though she's 100% human. And there's loads of combinations there. You could do Seven and Nine and Chakotay. You could do Patrick Stewart and the Borg Queen. You could do, the possibilities are endless. But,
I love the way you said it, Patrick Stewart, the Borg Queen, not Picard.
I'm sorry. that was a complete slip-up. He was rated the sexiest man in the world at one point.
Well, there you go. This is what you expect. But yeah, the other thing is that they're suggesting, you said about originally it was sold as a very personal story to Picard and all this kind of stuff. The other working theory is the reason he gets involved, not only to help her, is that the disease that Picard had previously that was threatening him has resurfaced, and it's the potential to rob him of his memories, which is basically all he has now. And there's the fact that there's so many now touchstones on this. The fact that Data only exists because of before and his memories. The collective is the vast collection of memories, and perhaps there's a copy of his memories out there somewhere, and she could potentially help him with that if in return he helps her. So that's two immediate huge touchstones things. The fact that Vulcans are in it at some point, and the Romulans, and saying that Vulcan mind melds and we remember is a line that someone says that you might forget, but we don't forget, someone says to Picard at one point, I think. And I think it's a Vulcan rather than a Romulan, because he's probably trying to push for some kind of reunification, but they don't want to do it with their cousins. That'll be part of the story. So I think it could be Picard is getting gradually worse and trying to help this girl whilst he's also struggling with his own memories. There's a bit of a Logan vibe where he's not quite as decrepit as he was playing Charles Xavier, but there's an aspect of that story to this one, I think.
Yeah, and we know, and this comes back full circle to what I was saying about I've got faith in Patrick Stewart, because we know that he's not just going to come back for any old show, right? There was something interesting in this that brought him back, that made him think that it's time to it's time to brush off the Starfleet communicator badge, which we see in the trailer.
Yeah.
So there's going to be something like that. So you're talking. So in season 7, we find out that he potentially in later life, he's going to get something called Irumodic syndrome. And then the last double episode of season 7 of Star Trek called All Good Things was about him going through these 3 different timelines and his future self, and nobody believed him because he was sort of slowly losing his mind.
Yes.
And then they find out in the current timeline that he is susceptible to it, and it is something that you will eventually get. So that all makes sense, and that could be the interesting thing, that it's this character study of somebody that's not the person that you once was, or is ceasing to become the person that you once was. And there was nice stuff in there right at the beginning of the trailer where, so he's clearly gone back to his family chateau and is making Chateau Picard wine and
absolutely. Why wouldn't
like
you?
that.
In a great vineyard in France.
Yeah. But there's that nice line at the beginning where he's like, I can't remember exactly what he says, which is weird because I've watched the trailer about 15 times, but he's basically along the lines of, I came out here, I gave it my best shot, but this has never felt like home. And it has him just like looking up to the stars. So there's lots of nice things in there. I was just slightly taken aback by the tone.
So do you want to hear the slightly worrying news that's related to it?
Yep, go on.
There's the potential that this was previously based on an idea that came from someone else who worked on the show earlier, Brian Fuller.
Right, okay.
So when he worked for CBS, Paramount, whoever it was, he pitched them a number of things, and it was something that involved Picard. Originally it was called Picard and Data. That was the name of the show, working title. And there's an interview with one of the other, is it Robert Burnett? Robert's, I can't remember his name, but there's another writer who's worked on the show that was involved with them at that time. And he rang up Brian Fuller when this trailer came out, and Brian Fuller had seen it and said, yeah, it made me cry, not in a good way, because it seems to be based upon the seeds of one of his ideas that he obviously sold to them or pitched to them when he was on work for hire. They then owned the rights to it. And it looks like Kurtzman and other people have taken that idea and changed it and moved it forward into something else, which is what we've got now.
Yeah, interesting. Not 100% more sure what to make of that, to be honest.
It's not a good way to do it if this is what they've done. I mean, there's still the ongoing legal problems over Star Trek Discovery, which is still a thing of, there's a lot of similarities between that and a game that was developed, and there's so many things for it to be dismissed because it's still an ongoing court case. So I'm hoping that they haven't done something similar with this and they haven't learnt their lessons. I
mean, Star Trek has a long and distinguished history of ripping people off. JMS and CBS settled out of court over Deep Space Nine because he pitched Babylon 5 to them, and they blatantly took so many ideas from it and called it Deep Space Nine, and didn't do as good a job as he did. But that's another story. But yeah, they've, even the Star Trek ripping people off goes right back to the very beginning with Gene Roddenberry, who Alexander Courage wrote the original Star Trek theme tune, and unbeknownst to him, Gene Roddenberry went off and wrote a series of absolutely god-awful lyrics that goes to the theme tune, so that they could get co-writer credit on the song, so Gene Roddenberry would get 50% of the royalties. And he did that without telling Alexander Courage. So even before the show started, it was pulling this kind of crap with people.
Wow.
It doesn't surprise me at all that this is still an ongoing thing that Star Trek has. But we'll see. Ignoring the fact that Brian Fuller might be upset, all of these things really come down to how well they're being executed. Yeah. And hopefully this is going to be something awesome. I feel extremely invested in this, so I'm going to be very disappointed if it turns out to be a complete turkey. I can't think of anything else. Even stuff that I love, Watchmen, and if it comes onto a streaming service that I have, I'll try and watch it. If it turns out to be rubbish, I'm not going to be upset. If Picard turns out to be rubbish, then I'm going to be very upset.
He did say that when people were saying, do you see this as a continuation? And he said, no, I wouldn't have done it if this was the same thing again. Mm-hmm. He wanted it to be something different, and he wanted it to be a different kind of story. Even though there is a crew of different people and they're all younger, he's talked about it in the sense that, if the show gets more serious, it'll do other things. It's not going to be the same kind of TV that we had in the 90s. It can't be. Things have moved on now. The episodic thing doesn't really exist in most shows these days. So that's one thing. The other thing is, if the first season's all about memory and him restoring himself and the Borg and the rest of it, they're probably going to have to wrap up most of that in that first season, I would think, and move it on to something else in the second season. So it could be there again. It'll improve, even if the first season is a bit of a wobbler. It depends on how fast they work, how well it's received, if Amazon wants to keep pouring money into it along with everybody else who's funding this. The other bright spark is that Jonathan Frakes has been directing episodes, and everyone's been delighted by that and said when he comes on set, it's been brilliant. And he and Marina Sirtis are in the episodes that they still haven't shot in front of the camera.
Yep, that's interesting. That'll be something to look forward to as well.
So even though we're getting cameos from the Next Generation, he said, it's not the crew all back together on the bridge doing the same thing. He wouldn't have signed up to do it if that's what we were expecting. It is nice to see them coming back, and I suspect if the opportunity comes up in the future to, we need a specialist engineer and blah, blah, let's go and see Admiral LaForge. That might pop up. But I don't think, they'll be in it every episode. Brent Spiner's already said, I'm not in every episode as Data, but I'm in it every now and then and various points along the way, which makes sense. And there again, Frakes and Marina Sirtis might be in one or two towards the end, and that's probably about it. But yeah, I'm really invested in this too. I won't be signing a petition. I won't be asking them to reshoot it if I don't like it, but I will be quietly fuming at home. That's for sure.
Yeah, like I say, I'm hoping for the best on this, and still very excited about it.
Yeah. I'm nervous, but I'm still excited. That's for sure. And it's now till next year. It was going to be in the autumn, but no longer anymore. So, but I'd rather they took longer and did it right than rush it out, and it would be rubbish.
Absolutely, yeah, me too.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else on that?
I think Picard is the right thing to finish on.
Yeah. We're quietly hopeful and where it's going to be next year. Okay. Right. Have you seen any of the trailers or any of the stuff that we've been talking about? If so, what did you think? Are you excited about the Picard TV series? Have you seen the previous Next Generation stuff or not? And Deep Space Nine and Voyage and all the rest of it? And are you going to start watching it from this point forward? And I wonder if that'll be an interesting experience for those who aren't familiar with the previous canon. Get in touch with us and let us know. You can email us. We're at gradualgeeks@gmail.com. Come on to the Facebook group. Go on to Geeks Syndicate website. And don't forget to like our podcast on iTunes and subscribe there as well. And I think that's it for this episode.
Brilliant.
Okay. In the meantime, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Good night.
Good night.